Now more than ever, Lowe's knows you don't just want a low price, you want the lowest price. And with our lowest price guarantee, you can count on us for competitive prices on all your home improvement projects. If you find a qualifying lower price somewhere else on the same item, we'll match it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Price match applies to same item. Current price at qualifying retailers. Exclusions and terms apply. Learn how we'll match price at lowes.com/lowest price guarantee.
This is Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Good morning and welcome into Money Moves. It is Jonathan Von Tobel and still gone. We will find out where she is a little bit later today. Stormy Buonantony in her place. Marc Malusis is with us, the Moose, and it is a very good time to have you, Marc. Now, we'll say in Stormy's time that has been gone, you have been here, Keith Irizarry has been here, so we've had our fill, and that generally sounds like we're done with it, but we're not, of folks representing New York. So it is a good thing you are here today, as we do have a lot to get to when it comes to the Knickerbockers, but we start, how we usually do, with a preview of what is coming.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
All right, first and foremost, the Memorial Tournament. Very much looking forward to David Bearman, who's going to join us, give us his thoughts on what's going to happen this coming weekend as one of the more, should I say, prominent, off-major tournaments is going to take place this coming weekend. Very excited to look at that. Always good to get a good golf tournament, especially, Marc, with what might be a very quiet weekend with nothing going on in some other sports like basketball and hockey.
Well, thank you. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. Yes, that is true, especially with the way that these series are going. There's no doubt with each and every one of these series being 3-1, we might be locked into Jack's tournament. The Memorial, as Jack was a little bothered about Rory. We saw those comments flying around yesterday, but I love the Memorial. I love tradition. That's what makes golf, right? The history of it, and the Memorial certainly has that.
I'm a very anti-tradition person, so we'll do very well together over the larger sample size. We also have a lot to get to today on this Wednesday. It is, of course, meaning that we have a Why Not Wednesday for you. So we got a couple of things off-the-wall topics. One of them is Knicks-related. We have a theme on the show today. Also, something in the National Football League. Been sprinkling it in as we are less than 100 days out, 99 specifically, to the start of the NFL season. So very much looking forward to that. But we'll have your thoughts on what I believe should be a big offseason move for the New York Knicks. And let's just get into it because our final thing and where we begin, the Pacers on the brink of the NBA Finals. Very excited for what could be on paper a fantastic series of Indiana versus Oklahoma City. But we have to go back to last night. The Pacers defeat the Knicks 130-121. First, they focus on what was an incredible performance from Tyrese Haliburton in the Indiana Pacers to put forth that effort in. You don't call it a must-win, but a 3-1 series lead means a lot in the history of basketball and generally in best-of-sevens. And for Tyrese Haliburton, Marc, to come out here in that game, 32 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, 0 turnovers. The guy was absolutely incredible. And these are the last 2 games of the series, right? Sometimes it helps to have Karl Anthony Towns just going off for 20 points in a fourth quarter. And sometimes it helps to have a point guard that can have a 30-point triple-double with no turnovers to lead you to a 3-1 series lead.
Yeah, and I think historically speaking, John, when you look at 95.4%, that's the number. Teams that take a 3-1 series lead in the history of the NBA go on to win that respective series. Listen, Indiana's been the better team. The Knicks gave one away in game 1. Indiana gave one away in game 3. You're going to look at that, to Haliburton because he deserves all of his flowers here on this Wednesday for the performance last night. I think Reggie Miller talked about during the broadcast. He and Reggie are very, very close, saying that he needed to do more after going back and watching the film in game 3, and he certainly did that. I mean, John, he almost had a triple-double at halftime. Think about that, about what Tyrese Haliburton was able to do. I thought he got a little greedy with some of his shots in the second half, but he is the head of the snake. There's no doubt. And I say that in a positive way. When you look at what makes the Indiana Pacers go, it's Haliburton and that up-tempo style. And you mentioned it, to go out there in that kind of a game, knowing that Indiana doesn't want to go back to New York tomorrow night with this series tied up at 2 games apiece, cement what they did at Madison Square Garden the first 2 games, and to set the tone and not have one turnover as the Knicks as a team had 18. I mean, as you know, it's just remarkable, especially when you look at how good that Knick defensive effort was in the second half of game number 3, where Indiana scored just 42 points. It was a superstar performance from someone who thought was very overrated, and those people are sitting down and shutting their mouths because Tyrese Halliburton is anything but overrated.
So you mentioned a key thing for me. I was very surprised that the Knicks, and they gave voice to this a little bit in the postgame presser. We're going to hear from Kat and Brunson here in a second. But overall, one of the things that the Knicks were talking about in the postgame pressure too, Marc, was the fact that they were letting the Pacers dictate the tempo. This is the first game of the series in which there was over 100 possessions in regulation. And when you look at it, like, I was very surprised. They were ripping and running too, New York, and that's not what they want to do. Offensive rating in transition for Indiana, 154.5. And that's just off live rebounds. So whenever, especially when Halliburton would get a rebound, they were off to the races and they were running. The Knicks fell into that trap. They started running with them as well. And their defense was just bad. Like that, I think that was the flat-out point. It was New York was very poor on that end. And I wanted to pick your brain on this because I want to play a bit from Brunson and Kat. Because one of the things the Pacers did was they were going after Jalen Brunson. There was a stat floating out there in terms of how many times Brunson's man was used as a screener, essentially telling us that that was the game plan. Let's go after Brunson. After the game, Jalen was asked that question. Here's what he had to say.
Not good enough. I mean, I could sit here and be very detail-oriented with you about certain things, but obviously not good enough. So there has to be a difference on my part when it comes to that.
We all got to be better for him. It's as simple as that. We all got to be better for him. It's not just him, it's all of us. I'm not going to start he's Cap. Of course, he's going to always speak with the highest regard, but as a team, we all got to do better. It's not just him, it's all of us.
You know, Marc, it's fitting that it's those two that are talking right there in that moment, because I think you can point to a lot of the issues for the Knicks, and a lot of it has to do with, I think, 3 characters, and it's those two that are sitting right there and Tom Thibodeau. And it's not like the Brunson and Towns aren't trying or anything like that, but when those two are on the floor together, Marc, they're not a good defensive team, and the Pacers are picking at that scab over and over again.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, and you put it kindly. I mean, they're terrible defensive players. I mean, Towns and Brunson are just abysmal, right? And they both obviously, and last night was not a foul issue, but they both had to take terrible fouls as well, with no impact on the game, and put themselves on the bench. I mean, the greatest asset, this is not your prototypical Tom Thibodeau type of team where it's more defensive minded. That was more last year than it was this year, right? This team wants to go out there and be efficient offensively. The Towns move, space the floor a little bit more, opening things up for Brunson to be able to do what he does. They acquired Mikal Bridges from Brooklyn to be able to combat the wing players when you're looking at the Boston Celtics. But, John, you hit upon it. I mean, the issue that Tom Thibodeau has here is you're looking at 2 wonderful offensive players. And we've seen the brilliance of Brunson and being voted clutch player of the year. You saw the brilliance of Towns in that fourth quarter, game 3, dropping in 20 points to lead the Knicks comeback. They're not complete players. So the Indiana Pacers are really well coached with Rick Carlisle. You mentioned it. They controlled the tempo, pace of play. Carlisle emphasized that going into game 4. And he was even screaming at his team last night, move, 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 run, run, run. They want to run the Knicks right off the court. The issue that the Knicks have is their 2 best offensive players are defensive liabilities. And so when you have Indiana looking to maximize possessions and get up and down the court, and you can't get stops, like look at game 3. Right? Game 3, we all look at Towns, and he had that historic 20 points in the fourth quarter, right? He was fantastic. Look who was on the court with him. Miles McBride, Landry Shamet, you look at it, DeLon Wright, and Josh Hart. Those were the guys that were going out there and getting defensive stops. Towns gets all the credit for the 20 points. I give him credit for that. Indiana scored 42 points in the second half. As a team, it was a remarkable defensive performance. The Knicks aren't good enough. Here's the problem the Knicks have in this series. They're not efficient enough offensively, and they're not athletic enough and deep enough to go toe-to-toe with Indiana, and they're not good enough defensively to get enough stops on the Pacers.
I also think that they're getting out-coached, and I think that a lot of this does fall at the feet of Tom Thibodeau, because there's a couple of things. We're going to hear from Tibbs here in a second. But to this point, I mentioned this yesterday with Keith Irizarry, who was with us, Marc, which is I thought yesterday was a litmus test for Thibodeau. he stumbled into a lineup fix that you're referring to. Jalen Brunson was in foul trouble, so they had to stagger Cat and Jalen Brunson. That led to that fourth quarter where Brunson was sitting on the bench, and they were able to get back into that game and eventually win it in Game 3. And I was curious to see if he was going to see, hey, maybe I should split these guys up a little bit more throughout the course of a game, and we should maybe be a little bit better. He did that in the second quarter. But then in the third quarter and beyond, they played a vast majority of their minutes together. And in the third quarter, they had a defensive rating of over 130, and they played essentially that entire quarter together. For the series, with those two on the floor, Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, you're looking at a team that has been outscored by about 19 points per 100 possessions, 19.1 to be specific. He has yet to really adjust, and I think you should be disappointed. The other part, Mark, and we're going to hear from him now, is this new starting lineup didn't work. You go out there in this last game, you get blitzed the second the game starts. You go back to it at the start of the third. It gets blitzed again. It's been annihilated in these last two games. Tibbs was asked afterward what he thought about the new starting lineup performance.
Yeah, and there's obviously some good, but also things that we have to do a lot better. So I didn't think, we really, I don't think we had a good grouping. We started slowly, but I thought there was a stretch in the first half where we settled down and we played well, but then we didn't close the second quarter. So that, now we come in with a deficit, and then we start the third, without great energy, and you can't do that. And then once it gets to double figures, now they got more confidence. So we got to make sure that we play with the proper approach and intensity and force, and be connected.
Mark, I think he's grasping at straws in this series, and I think it is showing.
Yeah, and John, I'll be honest, I'm a Tibbs supporter. I agree with you. I think he's been outcoached in the series by Rick Carlisle. I don't think there's any question about it. I think you saw the adjustment from Indiana going into Game 4 last night. Robinson was a -20 when he was on the court last night. And the longer Mitchell Robinson plays, the less effective he is. So I think you got to go back to the starting lineup. And I agree with you. I think you got to learn from stumbling into something that worked in Game 3 and split Brunson and Towns up to give your team a chance to get yourself back into the series, win a Game 5, get back on that plane to Indiana.
All right, we're not done with this series yet. When we come back, we do have our line for, of course, Game 5 back in New York. And I will have to tell you, I don't know what we're looking at here. And we'll tell you what that is when we come back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
So, Mark, I will have to put this out there to then make my point. And Marc Malusis is alongside filling in for Stormy Bonatoni here on Money Moves. I picked the Knicks to win the series in 7 in our pre-series article, right, to preview it. The actual bet for me in the series was over 5.5 games. So part of me does want the Knicks to win this game, of course, so I can win this bet on over 5.5 games in the series. Having said that, my hand has been forced since Game 2. And when I go back to what I teased out to, which was, I don't know what I'm looking at here. The Knicks opened up as 5.5-point favorites for Game 5 back in New York. Right? Why in the world does the betting market and odds makers, why do they continue to tell us that they believe the Knicks are the better team from a power rating standpoint? That, to me, is what I can't believe what I'm looking at here. If you are telling me that home court, and generally the market has rated home court again, is a very general number, as about being worth 3 points. So to open this 5.5 and to have this sitting at 5, and since Game 2, and why I bring that up, Mark, is they have been upgraded since Game 2. Since they lost Game 1, remember, we talked about it that day. That Game 2, that was up to 6 points for Game 2 for the Knicks to bounce back there. I have been forced, despite the fact that I thought the Knicks would win this series in 7 games, to bet the Pacers in every game since Game 1 because I think the market is too high on New York, and I will do it again. I will willingly lose this spot on the principle of this number just being too high. I don't understand what we're looking at to make it this high in favor of New York.
Yeah, John, I can't explain it. I mean, other than want or will, or other than believing that you're putting out a number that you think is going to tantalize both sides. I mean, because there's nothing that would lead you to believe that the Knicks should be this healthy of a favorite going into Game 5 tomorrow night. I mean, there's just not. And listen, I'm a lifelong Knicks fan. We talked about it last week when I filled in for Stormy and joined you at JBT. I mean, the very fact is, this is a game that can go. And listen, I think the Knicks will play well tomorrow night, but I think it's a possession game either way. I think it's a matter of runs in the fourth quarter. I think it's a matter of who executes. Yeah, we've had outliers where the Pacers blew game 3, the Knicks blew game 1. Look at the context of that game last night. Knicks had an opportunity to, I mean, that was a 6-point game with, 6.5 minutes to go. They had opportunities to go out there and seize the lead. They didn't execute. The Indiana Pacers did, right? They win that game 130-121. Was it at the Knicks pace? It was not. I would never take the Knicks laying 5 tomorrow night. They've been terrible at home. They don't execute at home. They've been a better road team this entire postseason, right? You saw Towns tweak his knee. You saw OG Anunoby, tweak his ankle a little bit toward the late in the game. They're getting, you look at Mitchell Robinson, he's getting minimized here. Carlisle's outcoached Tibbs. What would lead you to believe? I was having a conversation with a Knicks fan friend of mine last night when I was driving home. Like, what would lead you to believe that all of a sudden something is going to change tomorrow night other than the zest, the zeal, the fight of the New York Knicks from what we've witnessed here through the first 4 games? I think what we've witnessed here is the Indiana Pacers, what they did last year was not a fluke. Carlisle's great. They're deeper. They've got an answer for Brunson when you're looking at Aaron Nesmith defensively. They minimize what the Knicks can do. And outside of Karl Anthony Towns going nuclear in the fourth quarter, and Aaron Nesmith going berserk in the fourth quarter for Indiana, these two teams, Indiana's been the better basketball team at the play of it. And if they're able to play at their pace and tempo tomorrow night, this is a game that easily Indiana can win. I would never take the Knicks laying the 5.
Yeah. Again, you can win. I don't think they'll cover. I think it's too big of a number, but we will have plenty of time for that as that game will tip off tomorrow. Tonight, we could potentially see the end of the Western Conference Finals as we transition to what we're going to see on the hardwood between the Thunder and the Timberwolves. Current numbers right now, OKC, an 8.5-point favorite across the board, though some 8s are starting to appear. Total at 220.5. I'll just open the floor to you. Side, total, what sticks out at all for OKC and Minnesota tonight, Marc?
Yeah, to me, it takes, I'm all over Oklahoma City tonight. I know it's a big number at 8.5. I think we've seen in this series, number one, I think Minnesota, they fired their best shot in game 3. And we were on the airwaves before, that game took place. I thought whatever the Timberwolves had, they were going to give you in game 3. And they didn't just win the game. They went out there and embarrassed the Oklahoma City Thunder. They had an opportunity in game 4. They did. I don't love what Anthony Edwards had to say after the game in terms of him going out there playing a smart game and, maybe not shooting enough, but he did what he needed to do with the basketball because he was getting double teamed. Oklahoma City now comes back home. They're a healthy 8.5-point favorite. I think defensively, you've seen Minnesota struggle shooting the basketball on the road, especially in this series. I think that trend is going to go out there and continue what we saw games 1 and 2. I don't know if it's going to be necessarily as bad. I just know it's not going to be as good as they were at home. Hubie Brown used to always talk about the 10 to 15% from bench players and the uptick that you get on home court as compared to on the road. I would never take the Timberwolves plus the 8.5. I think this is Oklahoma City. I think, the T-Wolves had their chance to make this a series in game 4. They fell short. I think the Thunder daylight them tonight. I would take the Thunder laying the 8.5 and punch their ticket to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I think there's so many different interesting ways to look at this. From the side, we brought this up the day before yesterday. That was on Monday when I was by myself. But regardless, the home road splits for OKC have been very different. They have yet to cover a game on the road in this postseason. They are 0 for 7 away from home ATS. At home, they have played 8 games. They have covered 7 of those contests. If you look at the splits in terms of offense, they have been absolutely tremendous at home. They have been a completely different team away from home. The reason I bring this up, Marc, is I feel like from a number standpoint, again, I told Gil and Kelly this morning when I joined them on a numbers game. I think number, to me, would say it's Minnesota or pass. But the way that OKC is played, the difference from home to road, the fact that I don't really love where the Timberwolves are at from a mental standpoint. I don't know if you saw the clip from Finch yesterday during, I think it was locker room media availability, whatever it is, but he kind of thinks out loud when he's talking to the media. I haven't seen a 4-game stretch in the postseason where an off-ball foul has never been called. Referencing, of course, that OKC has not been called for an off-ball foul to his measure at this point of the series. I just don't know where this team's at. And just given the stark contrast in terms of where this team plays at home and where this team plays on the road, I think there's probably a pretty good shot. Maybe I'm wrong here. And, of course, they failed to cover the 2 games out there at OKC. And I took it on the chin with both of them. So I'm sitting here in this series, having bet Minnesota in every single game, and a 2-2 and a small loss, and I just don't know if I can bring myself to do it again from a side standpoint. But I am going to be interested to see if, yet again, the OKC home splits pop up, and they're just that dominant team they've been whenever they play on their home floor.
Well, you'd expect a more aggressive Anthony Edwards tonight for the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? My question to you, John, would be this. Who's the other guy that's going to follow him? Like Julius Randle, outside of the first half of game one, has disappeared. I mean, he really has. And that's where I think he hit like 4 or 5 threes in that first half for the Minnesota Timberwolves before they got outscored 70-40 in the second half, and Oklahoma City turned on that defense. Where's that secondary guy going to step up tonight for the Minnesota Timberwolves that's going to be able to because I'm a Randle guy. I liked him when he was here with the New York Knicks, and I thought he played exquisite basketball in the previous series, and he got off to a good start in this series. But really, for a while here, Julius Randle has not been what you expected him to be being that secondary guy. I love Dante DiVincenzo coming off the bench. I do. I think he's got all heart. He's got all grit, but I think there's a limit to his impact on the game. I would expect Edwards, just like you saw, just like you saw earlier on in the series where, when he comes off a down performance from a point production wise, that he's going to come out super aggressive. You saw that in game 3, right? He scored 16 points in the opening quarter. They led that game 3, 34-14 after the opening quarter. I would expect Edwards to be super aggressive tonight for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I just don't think it's enough.
Yep, I'm with you. And to your point about the role players, like a couple of the guys, right? Is Naz Reid going to appear on the road at some point? At home in 7 games, 11.7 points, 5 rebounds on 57% shooting from the floor, 41% from 3. Away from home in this postseason, down to 9 points, 4 rebounds on 41% shooting from the floor and 35% from 3. We can go through all these guys and find these dramatic splits home and road. And to the point of Julius Randle or Anthony Edwards, if you're the Thunder, why would you change the way you've defended them? They have sent multiple bodies at these guys. Every single edict, every single time, Marc, has been, you other guys beat us. They almost did it last game, but it still wasn't enough, and I don't think that changes here again. And I think you can call it passive. You can call it whatever you want. I think Ant gets 3 dudes thrown at him every time he tries to drive to the basket, and I think that is going to, again, force him to be a jump shooting guy, and maybe there's some variance that hits, but I just don't know with an average jump shot length of like 20-plus feet if that's going to get you anywhere if you're Minnesota, if that's what Ant has to do again tonight.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get him anywhere. And then you listen to his response after game 4, John, and he's defending the style and fashion in which he played, right? So he's going to say, listen, I made the right basketball decisions. Now the question is, all right, the production that they were able to get from those secondary, tertiary guys in game 4 that gave them an opportunity, are they now going to go out there and get that production on the road in Oklahoma City? You bring up the splits, right? You bring up the splits of Oklahoma City, home and away. You bring up the splits of Minnesota, their role players, home and away. And now it's a big number, 8.5. I think it's a tantalizing number where they're begging you to take the Minnesota Timberwolves, but I also think it's a number where, and I've been baited before, where I've taken that number where, and I've learned my lesson, where in the second half, I'm like, man, I'm a fool. Why did I take that number? You know what? It was Oklahoma City's game, and I think it's going to be a Thunder game tonight back at home, and they punch their ticket to the finals.
Edge Boost, the first ever bank account built for bettors, ensuring all gambling transactions are approved. No usage fees, no minimums, earn cash back rewards, 100% approval for all betting deposits. Sign up today at edgeboost.bet, promo code MONEY. Deposit $25 and Edge Boost will match the deposit. That is edgeboost.bet. I do have a bet in the Western Conference Finals. We'll get to that a little bit later. From the player prop variety, David Bearman joins us next.
Watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, Money Moves rolls on. Marc Malusis in here with us today, filling in for Stormy Buonantony. She will be back on Monday from her trip. I think we have a new picture. She did send us, some stuff yesterday, so looking forward to that. I sent her a text in Italian. I don't know if she Google translated it or understood it, but she did respond, so hopefully it is going well. But we head out to the Progressive guest line in places far away as well, just not as far as Italy, and welcome in one David Bearman, who may or may not owe me money and is avoiding a trip to Las Vegas to avoid paying me said money after an NFL bet gone awry for him with his Miami Dolphins. But that's neither here nor there. David, we appreciate it. Want to note, Pro Football and Sports Network. Also check out the Betting with Bearman newsletter at David Bearman PFN up on X. All right, let's get to what we were just discussing, that we can jump off into the Memorial and other things, David. But we were just going over Western Conference Finals tonight. 8.5-point spread in favor of OKC. Totals floating around 220.5. Two-part question. Do you think it ends tonight? And are there any bets to make this evening?
First of all, I did offer to pay that bet while we were at the Super Bowl in New Orleans, but you're too busy yelling at the people on Bourbon Street for me to buy you a drink. But I'll get you one next time I'm in Vegas. To answer your question, I do think the series is over, but I don't want to lay the 8.5 with Oklahoma City, even though they are a much different team at home than on the road. I'm sure you guys have covered the 0-7 against the spread on the road, which is, by the way, never happened for a team that's eventually gone on to win the NBA title. The worst was 5-7 by the Celtics back in 2008. So we're looking at history there. But at home, different story. 6-2 against the number at home in the postseason. 8.5 is a lot to lay in a game. Now, there is a case to be made that they just run away with it. It's over. Minnesota doesn't show up. But laying 8.5 is a hefty price to pay to assume that Minnesota doesn't show up. I'm going to go into the prop market. If you look right now at who can be the leading scorer of this game, SGA, MVP of the NBA, understandably is the favorite, but he's a minus 190 favorite to lead this game in scoring, and I'm going to go elsewhere there. I think that it's live for Anthony Edwards to put up a big game tonight, regardless if they get blown out or not, because if they start getting blown out, he's going to put up every shot. If it's competitive, he's going to be putting up shots. The offense has shifted more to an Anthony Edwards style offense. He had 18 drives in the last game to Julius Randle's 2. He's shooting a high percentage off the dribble. So he's basically been their offense, and you can get him at plus 200 to lead tonight's game in scoring. It is a longer shot as opposed to SGA's minus 190, but I think you're getting good value there on a player prop as opposed to trying to figure out whether the Timberwolves can cover 8.5 or not.
David, I like that. I like the Edwards angle. Want to look ahead to the ECF tomorrow night, the Eastern Conference Final, Game 5 at the Garden. John and I were talking about it. Knicks being a 5-point favorite, even being down 3-1. Anything you like tomorrow night, whether you look at that or the total in the game sitting at 222.5?
I like the Pacers plus the 5.5. First of all, they've already won both games in New York. I know there were circumstances with the Knicks blowing a big lead and, Indiana tying it up and going to overtime. They've just been the better team in the series. I know either team could have won all 4 games or lost all 4 games so far. It's been a crazy series. I do like the Pacers getting the points, so I think the Knicks can win and stay alive. Sure, they're at home and the season's on the line. They probably should win the game, but I'm not going to lay 5.5 with them considering they're only winning the series. All the games have been tight. So I'm going to take the 5.5 with the Pacers. I would lean towards the Knicks with the money line. Obviously, you're not going to pay the juice there. I think the Knicks win the game, but it would not surprise me at all if the Pacers go in there and win yet another road game. Keep in mind, this is a team that went into Cleveland and won all 3 games. There's no reason why they can't go into New York and do the same.
All right, David, before we get to golf, you made a comment before we came on. You don't want to chase these 3-1 teams? What did you mean by that, the teams that are leading these 2 conference final series?
Well, all 4 series so far in the NBA and NHL are 3-1, and I heard a lot of things last night in social media about which of the teams down 3-1 do you want to take to come back and win the series, and quite simply, the answer is none of them. I don't like any of these teams to rebound. Obviously, it's hard to come back from 3-1. It's only been done 13 times in the NBA. It's been done 32 times in hockey, but only once in this round in terms of the conference finals or NHL semifinals, depending how old you are. So it doesn't happen often. And if you look at the 4 teams, obviously the simple answer would be the Knicks would be the team that could come back. They got 2 of 3 at home. Every game's been tight. You look at the other 3 teams, barely have shown a heartbeat. The Hurricanes in hockey have led for 1 game. The Stars led for basically 1 period is all they've shown up. And you've seen what happens in Minnesota. They've had a couple of good games. One was one that the Thunder didn't show up at. So I'm not interested. When I say chasing, I mean like chasing the big prices. Like, can these teams come back at 18-1 odds or 20-1 odds? I don't like any of them.
Oh, before we get to the golf, while we stay on that theme, because you brought up, I know you're a big Panther fan. When you bring up Florida, they lead that series against Carolina 3-1. They've dealt with injuries as well. Carolina wins Game 4 to force a Game 5 back at home. What do you look at in terms of Game 5, Canes and Panthers?
So the thing that concerns me the most is the injuries. It's not the fact that the Panthers got to go on the road. They've won their last 4 Stanley Cup playoff road games, 22-4, which is insane when you think about it. Winning games 5 and 7 in Toronto and 1 and 2 in Carolina. In fact, they've won the last 4 times they played Carolina in Carolina when it comes to the playoffs. I'm more concerned about the injuries. They missed 3 players in the last game. Just before I came on the air, I was told that they were at the morning skate. Doesn't mean they're going to play, but at least they're skating this morning. The Panthers offense looked a lot different, missing a couple of their guys. I would not be surprised if Sam Reinhart came back tonight. I know Nico Mikkola was huge in Game 3, and AJ Greer was also big in Game 3. Losing all 3 of those players does damage the offense, but I still think the Panthers are in control of the series. Listen, they've done this before. 3-0 series lead against Edmonton. They went to a Game 7. They had the chance to clinch at home versus Toronto, and they had to go on the road after losing 2-0 at home. It didn't stun me that they lost at home in Game 4 when they have this huge lead in the series and 3 players were injured. I do think they close out the series in Carolina in Game 5. And the one thing that you should look at is there hasn't been a game so far in either the Eastern or Western Conference Finals that has been decided by less than 3 goals. I know last night and the night before they were both 1-score games before the empty net happens, but that's part of handicapping hockey. You can get the Panthers at plus 200 right now on the puck line. If you think they're going to finish it out, the way these series have ended with the Panthers pulled their goalie with 4.5 minutes to go the other night to try to finish the series off. That obviously came back to bite him in the butt. Plus 200 Panthers puck line to finish it off tonight.
All right, the Memorial out in Dublin, Ohio this weekend. We have another golf tournament in which Scottie Scheffler is a massive favorite at the top. Last time out, didn't really work out. Tied for 4th despite the very short odds. Are we going to try to short Scottie Scheffler once more this weekend?
Listen, I don't blame anybody if they're going to take one bullet and put it on Scottie Scheffler to win at plus 280 or 300. I don't blame you. The guy's a defending champ. He's number 1 in the world, and he's playing as well as anybody. That's just not the way I bet golf, playing a 280 guy. Last week, I bet him top 5 at minus 175, and it hit. This week, it's the same price, 175. I'm going to play it again. And really, the way to play Scottie is to just wait and get him live if you can. I snagged him at 18-1 last week on a Friday, and then you wake up Saturday afternoon and he's 1 shot back of the lead. Didn't win, but I felt a lot better about having him at 18-1 than having him at plus 280. Again, at 18-1, you got to be about 9 strokes back to get there. I'll be playing Scottie in the live market, hoping that a few guys go out there on Thursday and set a number that he has to chase. But other than that, the guys that I like in this tournament with much better value, Colin Morikawa, who's anywhere from 16 to 18-1 on the board. This is a guy who's won here, even though it wasn't at the Memorial. He won the Workday charity event that basically preceded the Memorial back in the 2020 COVID days at this course. He's also finished runner-up twice in 2021 and 2024. He has what it takes to win here. 7th on approach, 6 tee to green. Is he due? I don't like saying someone's due, but he does have 11 top 10s since the last time he won. A little bit of a longer shot that I'm going to go, JVT, is Sepp Straka. He's at 40-1 and has really no business being 40-1. He's a guy who won the last signature event at the Truist in Philly a few weeks ago, finished 5th at the Arnold Palmer Classic, 14th at the Players. The reason I think he's getting the 40-1 is because he missed the cut at each of the first 2 majors. So did a lot of players. If you're looking at what this guy brings to the table and where his metrics are, he leads the tour in greens and regulation. He's 2nd on approach and 9th in tee to green. Jack's course at Muirfield Village, 5th longest course, 3rd smallest greens. You got to hit the fairways. You got to hit the greens. Sepp Straka, 40-1. I think people are sleeping on that price.
Quickly, anybody that you're fading that you don't like at all?
Fading that I don't like at all. I think Justin Thomas isn't perfect for this course. He's somebody I'm not going to play, but I will throw some other names out there that I do like. Daniel Berger, top 10 finish, getting good value because he missed the cut last week, but he missed the cut because he couldn't putt. He was stroking it really, really well. Victor Hovland's a guy who won this a few years ago. I'm not playing him this week, so I'll be fading Victor Hovland. I do like Xander Schauffele to finish in the top 20, Corey Connors to finish in the top 20, and I'll throw out one more long shot. Bud Colley, 100-1. His metrics line up for this place. He finished T3 last week at a very tough course. I cashed the top 20 tick. I'm going to play him again in the top 20 at plus 225. 100-1 might be a little bit too long for this course and this field, but just look out for Bud Colley at 100-1.
David, we appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a good one, and I do owe you that beer.
Thanks, David.
Yes, you do. Chief Content Officer, Pro Football and Sports Network, Betting with Bearman newsletter as well. Folks, remember, too, go to VSiN.com. We got a lot of great stuff up there. I'm going to tell you about something we got that we're going to unveil later this evening. Coming up next. I cannot wait to get to that and more. Very excited for what's coming. But VSiN.com, get your last chance at signing up for a Pro subscription. Use the promo code PRO, and you get less than $200 for 14 months of access. Check it out now, VSiN.com/subscribe.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Can it make you say why not?
That wasn't a stupid question.
It's time for Why Not Wednesday.
I mean, why not?
You know when they say it's so crazy it just might work?
All right, so again, much like our, I've already forgotten. What do we do on Mondays? Call me crazy. I will probably not bring the requisite energy that one Stormy Buonantony does for something like this, but I will try my best. So I'm going to start with one. It's actually fitting because we were just talking with David Bearman, who is a big Miami Dolphins fan. I've been getting ready slowly but surely, Marc, for the NFL season. We got 99 days until it begins. So just kind of going through the AFC East. It's going to be one of the previews that I write for our NFL guide. So you tell me why not, in terms of betting the Dolphins to have the least wins in the regular season at 25-1. Now, again, it is a long shot. You'd have to go a little bit off the beaten path when it comes to what the season could potentially be. But I don't know about you. I was not thrilled with the Dolphins offseason. I think their offensive line is going to be a small issue. I think their defense is going to be awful. Their secondary stinks. They really don't have much up front. I think there's a real good chance that we look at this team by the time we get into the year and go, oh, yeah, like in a pretty solid division where there's teams around them that are power rated somewhat similarly. The Dolphins, the Patriots getting better. The Bills are an absolute monster. I think the Jets are better than what we think. And in an AFC and with a schedule that is challenging, if the injuries hit like we can sometimes see, especially with Tua at the helm, I think there's a stronger reality than I think the market is indicating here that the Dolphins actually bottom out and we get to the end of the year. We're talking about them being one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah, it's hard to fight you off. John, I think you laid it out very well. And you had the report from Schefter about 48 hours ago that within the next couple of weeks, Jalen Ramsey is expected to be dealt by the Miami Dolphins, right? Throw that into the mix as well to go along with everything that you laid out there. And McDaniel, and they've not been a good cold weather team. We've seen it. The offensive line, ability to go out there and win at both points of attack. Defensive line has taken hits with losses over the last couple of years. The only reason I'd say why not is I'd present to you the New York Giants, right? And the New York Giants are coming into the year, and I think their win total is sitting at 5.5. They have the toughest schedule in the entire National Football League. They're going to be starting Russell Wilson at quarterback. At some point in time, you would expect Jackson Dart to get a little bit of burn. You have a general manager and a head coach, even though I don't think perception is necessarily reality, but a lot of people perceive the idea that they are on an unbelievable hot seat coming into the 2025 season. And then you look at the NFC East, where you have the defending Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. You have the Washington Commanders, who are going to be second-year Jayden Daniels. And then if Dak Prescott can stay healthy, and I have questions about whether or not Schottenheimer is exactly a good head coach. He's a terrible offensive coordinator, but we'll see exactly what he does as HC down there in Dallas. The Dallas Cowboys, at least on paper, are a little bit more talented. Now, I like what the Giants have done defensively. I don't think their defensive coordinator, Shane Bowen, is particularly good, and he has a lot of pressure on him coming into year number 2. So I like your assessment of the Miami Dolphins. Yeah. The problem is, I think the chef's kiss would be the New York Giants because of everything they're going up against, the schedule that they face, and the fact that they're going to have Wilson at quarterback and the pressure that is on their GM and head coach to win, but facing the schedule that they're facing in 2025.
I'm just trying to find, because generally every year there is a team that we have somewhat higher expectations for. and then they don't meet them, and actually it's somewhat catastrophic. I think you can point to last year, for example, the San Francisco 49ers, who had a win total floating around 10.5. Injury struck them. They ended up with only 6 wins. I think you could throw there's a couple of other teams in there. I was thinking off the top of my head that you could throw in there, but still, like, I think the 49ers are the best example of that. Oh, the Jets. The Jets were a team that had a total of 9.5, and people thought were going to be very competitive, and that season fell apart too. And generally, you're going to get better shots on those. Now, again, both of the teams that I just mentioned ended up not finishing with the worst record of the NFL. But I think the Dolphins are going to be interesting. It's not like I'm taking a super long shot here. They're 8.5 in terms of their win total, shaded to the under. They're projected to be about a 7-8 win team. But there is, I think, a reality where, especially if Tua gets hurt, Mark, I mean, these times that we have seen, this has been my biggest criticism of McDaniels, which is, look, you see time and time again, like, look last year what LaFleur did at times when he was on his backup quarterback. It was brilliant. He was able to use a backup quarterback's strengths to win games. If Tua gets hurt, this thing completely hits the floor. And then you have these weird things. Tyreek Hill starting to make comments about he wants a 2,000-yard season, not really focused on what the grand picture is going to be. I have this sneaking suspicion that this is the team that falls very, very much underneath their expectations, but could be somebody else that's more shocking.
I think your assessment of Miami is correct. I don't think Miami is going to be particularly good this year. I think they could be in a battle with a few other teams. You look at the Cleveland Browns and their quarterback situation. Love Myles Garrett. I like their head coach and Kevin Stefanski. You need a quarterback to go out there and consistently win. Their quarterback room is an absolute mess. And then obviously the New York Giants. I'm going to give you one that's not on an odds board, right? It's not on an odds board right now. It's circa. It's not anywhere, right? I'm going to go on the idea that JVT next year will hop on a plane, because I know you love New York, right? I know you love New York City. So why wouldn't you hop on a plane next year and go see a Knick or a Ranger game with me at Madison Square Garden? My question to you is, why not?
Oh, I'll totally do that. Yeah, like I would absolutely do that. I think New York is a fine city in and of itself. I had a wonderful time the last time I was out there. I will still say to this day, Mark, I have said this, and I think I mentioned this to you in the break, but I didn't word it like this. The single most powerful experience I think I've had in terms of personal was going to the 9/11 Memorial Museum when I got to go out there back in 2017, 2018 or so. So I think there are many assets or aspects of New York that I enjoy. So yes, I would do that if it's on your dime. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm throwing the invite out to you.
All right.
Last week we worked together, and I asked you, "Do you like New Yorkers?" And he's like, "Not really." I go, "Why?" You're like, "A little arrogant. You're a little arrogant at times." I know you're working with a lot of New Yorkers as Stormy's on vacation. I was just curious, have I struck you to the point where you would not take in a Ranger or a Knick game with me?
Oh, totally would. And I'll bust out my favorite phrase about New Yorkers, which I'm sure you've heard before. But you give a New Yorker a piece of gum, they'll teach you how to chew it, right? Like, that's essentially how sometimes it goes. And you don't strike me as somebody who would teach me how to chew double bubble. So I very much appreciate that. All right, let's stick with the New York theme, because I do have something for you here in terms of why not. And we can expand this out, because I do think that one of the things we should talk about that is legitimate in terms of criticism for your Knicks last night is Tom Thibodeau. The Knicks should hire Michael Malone in the offseason. I think we're done here. I think we know that Tibbs can reach a certain extent, but I don't think you get all the way. And I think that the Knicks should go out, replace Tom Thibodeau in this offseason with a championship-winning coach who fits the New York vibe, by the way. He's from the area, right? In Michael Malone.
Yeah, I can't fight you off all that much. And I love Tibbs, and he's 67 and he loves being the Knicks head coach. I think you've seen limitations. I think you've seen him kind of being cemented in some of his decision-making, the lack of adjustments at times, the lack of the development of the bench, even though there's not really a lot on that bench, John, when you take a look at it. I could see there being a reaction by Leon Rose, because here's the issue that the Knicks have. I've seen the reports about going out there, potentially go and get Giannis, and we'll see exactly what his future is with the Milwaukee Bucks. But the Knicks have made their moves. They gave up 5 first-round draft choices to go get Mikal Bridges. They made the big move with Minnesota to go get Karl Anthony Towns. Like, this is it. Like, this is the group. Jalen Brunson went out there and took less money in his extension in order to try and put this group together. So this is the group that's got to try and get it over the top. If they've taken another step this year, they certainly have. Have you seen the limitations with Tom Thibodeau as a head coach at times? There's no question. Has he been outcoached in the series by Rick Carlisle? Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think there are a lot of Knicks fans that are frustrated watching the head coach and watching some of the limitations that you see, especially in a long playoff series.
Yeah, and we'll see if Malone actually ends up somewhere. It's going to be pretty interesting. Sometimes you see, like I think Kenny Atkinson for Cleveland's a pretty good head coach, and he was when he was in Brooklyn. I mean, you might have some familiarity out there when he was out in that neck of the woods, and but it took him a long time to find another job as a head coach, and maybe that was of his own accord or whatever it was, but I don't think Malone should be like Atkinson and sitting on the sidelines just assisting. He should have a head coaching job and have it soon.
No, and I think here's the discernible difference, right? When you look at Kenny Atkinson, people pigeonholed him and said he was a great talent developer, right? He did it with the Knicks. He did it with Atlanta. You know, he did it in Brooklyn when there weren't a lot of expectations, built it, and the stars arrived, and they were like, well, we don't want to play for this guy. So out he goes, and in steps Steve Nash, which was a terrible decision by the Brooklyn Nets at times. But it took Kenny Atkinson, as you mentioned, a while, and he did a wonderful job with the Cleveland Cavaliers during the course of the regular season. Unfortunately, injuries and beset them in that series against the Indiana Pacers. I don't think Michael Malone's going to be out all that long because he's already won a championship and did it in Denver. I think the messaging in Denver started to wear thin, and that's why he saw the door.
Well, very excited now that I have a free trip to New York on the way. And speaking of free, VSiN fans, if you'd like to play...
just the tickets to the game.
Okay. Well, speaking of free, if you'd like to play Circa Survivor or Circa Millions, I try to get something out of it. For free this season, Winner Circle Proxy giving away one free $1,000 entry to each contest plus full proxy service. And get this, you're going to get paired with a VSiN host for strategy all season long. Enter now for your chance to win. Again, play Circa Survivor or Circa Million contest for free. Go to winnercircleproxy.com/VSiN.